Imagine how well that's going to serve you in your day-to-day life. You've got your kids with all their toys scattered in the living room and backpacks and whatnot, and you trip and slip on something. You're in your garage taking a box off of a shelf, but you're kind of like wedged between the car trying to reach and grab it, and now say something in that box shifts and kind of throws your overhead positioning off. So again, how well can you stabilize if you're on a hike? You trip or fall, slide on a rock awkwardly, right? That athletic strength to stabilize is going to apply to you there. Yeah. These are just some of the examples of how the stability part of it can help with us being strong in our day-to-day activities that we experience and minimize us getting hurt. I have one lady, and when she started with me, she was very caught up on like the number on the scale. And again, she was one of my clients. She enjoys traveling, and she would go on vacation and come back. Oh, I gained 3 pounds while I was on vacation. And I'm like, that's fine. Like that, you had a good time on your vacation, right? You got to eat some good food. You experienced a new country. You saw a different culture, and you gained 3 pounds. That's fine.
Hey everybody, welcome back to A Better Way with Kirsten podcast, and I'm really excited to do a guest episode today. So previously I've done quite a few guest episodes, but not recently. So I'm really excited to be back, and today I am interviewing one of my best friends and really excellent trainers, Derrick Virassammy. So Derrick's going to tell us a little bit more about himself in a second, but I'm just going to tell you real briefly why I wanted to have him on. There's actually several reasons, but one of them is to talk about athletic performance and more just like agility, speed, that type of training, which I think is lacking from a lot of people's routine. And the other thing that I definitely want to talk about is just to discuss the state of the fitness industry in general, which is very heavily focused on, in our opinion, wrong metrics many times. So these are some of the topics that we would like to cover today. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. And Derrick, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. So a little bit about me. I run AGF performance training here in the Bay Area. I do come from a basketball background, having played collegiately at the club level and then going on to work out for professional teams after that. I did have injuries. I suffered an injury as a player, but more seriously, I guess, I was involved in a car accident where I was a passenger in a car where someone texting and driving hit us. The car I was in was totaled, and that accident left me unable to move for a period of time. And so that was, I had to start from the ground back up, being able to walk again and all that, and going through that whole rehab and physical therapy process of building from the ground up to being able to return to activity is what got me passionate about, working in this field and doing the right type of training, knowing so many people have, limitations and injuries and need accommodations for their body. And then from there, I got into doing, the sports performance stuff. I got certified as a sports performance specialist, functional training specialist. And now I work with athletes of all levels, as young as 6 through high school, college, as well as just individuals who, whether that be they've got injuries and limitations that they're trying to work around and return to moving better, or if it's just people who are trying to stay athletic as they age and just do something a little different than just your bicep curls, tricep extensions, and, just your traditional exercise and stay moving well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is awesome because you bring this little different perspective, like having gone through the thing you did, go through, like, recovering from this really serious injury. You know more than so many other trainers who don't have that experience. So you can really resonate with these people and help them out. So I think it's really cool. When did it happen, by the way? How many years ago was it?
The accident?
Yeah.
That was 2014. Yeah, it was 2014, I believe. Summer of 2014.
Right.
So it's over 10 years now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you really had to start from the beginning again to building your body back up.
Yeah, it was a year of not being able to exercise at all. So mind you, I went from being an elite level athlete, preparing to go to professional workouts for basketball teams and all that. And in the blink of an eye, that all just changed just like that. I went from jumping to being able to hit my head 10 feet in the air on the backboard in the rim. That's how high I was jumping, to now you're grounded and I couldn't lift my own body out of bed. Like severe back and neck pain, couldn't turn my head at all, anything like that. So it was a challenging time, not only physically, but mentally as well, because of where I had been. And it wasn't like a slow decline. Like, an athlete in their peak. Okay, now they reach their peak and they start to decline and fall off. It wasn't that. It was just you're here and then instantly all that's gone. So it was a challenging time for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy. So was that what actually ended your basketball career?
Well, I actually was able to come back from that, and I was able to then attend workouts for teams after. I actually made a team after that as well. But at that point, I then suffered a knee injury from basketball after that, and at that point, I was still athletic. I still go into a regular gym. I'm more athletic than anyone there, but at the pro level, it is the best of the best. So, and if you're not, at your peak, it's hard when everyone's jumping as high as I was and just as fast. And I'm 6'1", so I was on the smaller side. I'm not one of those 6'6", 6'10" guys.
Yeah. Well, the stuff you can do is like amazing, like how high you can jump, and that's really cool. So I hope people definitely will look you up on Instagram later and see some of the cool stuff that you can do.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we talk about athletic training and performance training? So what is it, or what are they, and how are they different from regular weightlifting at the gym?
Yeah, so there's three pieces I think that I look at as far as how athletic training differs from just regular training. Now, a lot of what athletic training is built on is the foundations of regular strength training, right? You have to have that strong base and foundation before you can get to the athletic training. But the first key piece for me is we train movement patterns and not just muscle groups, right? So I think a lot of what you see being done in gyms, most training is more of a bodybuilding approach to build the size of your quads, build your back muscles, build your bicep muscles, right? But athletes are going through different movements, right? So we need to have strength not only to the muscle groups, but through different motions and movements, right? So train movement patterns, not just muscle groups. Number two would be, and I think this is something that might be surprising for people. A lot of people think of athletic training and they just think of it from the perspective of running fast, jumping high, being explosive and powerful, right? And I even see a lot of athletic trainers jumping straight into that work with clients. But before any of that is done, we need to train stability and the brakes. The majority of sports injuries occur in the deceleration or braking phase. So not when people are jumping do they get hurt, but it's when they are landing that they get hurt, right? So this is why it's critical that, like I said, we establish the strong foundational movement patterns like a squat, lunge, right? If you're planting to change direction from a sprint, that in the deceleration, when you plant to change, that's when the injuries occur, right? So having stability and reactive stability, and that's not just balancing on one foot, but the whole body working as a unit, from the ground up, reactive stability through the trunk and core, because a lot of times we find ourselves in unideal positions as an athlete. We want to be strong to stabilize, to make sure we minimize injury, right? So that's the second piece. And then the third piece, I'd say, is now where we get more to the performance side, is fast twitch work. So that's going to be, the muscles that are going to help us run fast, jump high. And simply some of those movement patterns that I was talking about, right? We always get caught up in the gym, I think, on lifting heavier, but with training fast twitch, it's actually moving lighter weights through some of these movement patterns, but focusing on moving more rapidly and quickly through it. And that's going to then translate to training those muscles to move quickly when we're sprinting, jumping, and so forth.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point. Like training also doesn't look like the same all the time. Like, yes, a lot of people focus on strength, and I definitely have done too, but I think there has to be like different phases and different times. Like actually just in one of my previous episodes, I talked about this idea that I've seen kind of circulating on social media that, women, especially, 40 plus, should only do very heavy lifting, only like 4 to 6 reps, and like, max out almost every time. And then, I had a friend who texted me. I was like, oh, is that how I should train? And I told her, because I write her plans. So I was like, if this is what I believed in, I would have written your plan like this, but I don't. And so I put in, like you said, faster movements sometimes. We do lighter weights. We're not going to do like only 4 reps. We're going to do, 15 up to 20 sometimes, because your body needs variety and it needs different skills, like in different life scenarios. All this is useful. So it cannot be only about, who's lifting more weights or who has the bigger lats or whatever. There's so much more to like well-rounded training.
Yeah, and I think the thing is too is it's like they go hand in hand together. So it's not just like either this or that. It's like it's
Yeah.
not just all heavy lifting and no athletic training,
Hmm.
or you say, "Oh, I'm doing athletic training, so I can't do any heavy strength work." It's like no, you need both of them because at the end of the day, if
Hmm.
we're looking at an athlete, obviously they need to be physically strong too. But as far
Hmm.
as improving performance, we need to do
Hmm.
some of those movements where okay, you're moving lighter weight more
Hmm.
quickly to build your
Hmm.
speed, but you still obviously need the strength to be able to take hits and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. So would you tell us how this translates into like an everyday regular person's life? So you obviously have talked about athletes a lot, but let's say that you are a mom, somewhere between, let's say 35 to 55, and you have your kids, you live your everyday life. You're like, where the heck do I need to be athletic? I don't see even myself as an athlete. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So if we just touch on the point that I talked about with the brakes that we build, right? The stability part of it. I think if you have athlete brakes, imagine how well that's going to serve you in your day to day life. You've got your kids with all their toys scattered in the living room and backpacks and whatnot, and you trip and slip on something, right? That same stability, if you have athletic stability, those brakes are going to apply there. You're on a hike, you trip or fall, slide on a rock awkwardly, right? That athletic strength to stabilize is going to apply to you there. You're taking down a lot of what we do as an with athletic strength is being strong in unideal positions, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
you think of typically you think of strength training on a bench press, on a squat, where it's like you can usually set up in a pretty comfortable position to press the most amount of weight, a lot of
Hmm.
strength. For athletes that I do is being strong in unideal positions. So you're in your garage taking a box off of a shelf, but you're kind of like wedged between the car trying to reach and grab it, and now say something in that box shifts and kind of throws your overhead
Yeah.
positioning off. So again, how well can you stabilize from the ground up, right? So
Yeah.
these are just some of the examples of how the stability part of it can help with us being strong in our day-to-day activities that we experience and minimize us getting hurt.
Hmm.
But the other piece of why athletic training is important, and especially the fast twitch work, is our fast twitch muscle fibers after the age of 30, we know they start to decline, right? We start to lose them.
Hmm.
Now, if we train them, though, we can slow that process of losing them, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Now, this is important because we know that as we age, our fall risk increases, our balance starts to go, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
But in studies, they found that the fast twitch muscles play a key role in helping minimize the fall risk because if you are walking say down the sidewalk and there's like a elevation in the sidewalk and you trip over that or you trip over a rock on a hike,
Hmm.
you when you when you quickly react to kind of catch yourself on that fall, that is your fast twitch muscles firing up to
Hmm.
quickly react and catch yourself and prevent that fall.
Hmm.
So this will just the athletic training will help you age well and also move well because we get into moving outside of just the sagittal plane where everything is here. Move
Yes.
laterally, move rotationally. So it's like you're going to get good mobility through your body and be able to move and engage in activities with your kids if you want to kick a soccer ball around with them or whatnot, not have to worry about, oh, I'm going to hurt myself.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And I really like the point also that you mentioned that most people, most gym exercise, whatever exercise, are like in like a front, which is the sagittal plane that you mentioned, like in front of us, like all the movements, you lunge forward, but we have to think about in real life, we do move sideways.
Yeah.
We do turn and rotate and twist. I mean, think about something as simple as, I don't know, grabbing something on the back of your back seat of your car. That's rotation, right?
Yes.
Something like that. And people, I don't think a lot of people kind of piece this together. Maybe the word athletic itself is something that sounds like, oh, it's out there, it's for those athletes, and I'm not one of them. But I'm so glad that you gave us these examples that show that no, everyday life requires that you're able to do that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
And not everything is in ideal, like 2 feet down,
Yeah.
supported position or sitting on a bench. It's
Yeah.
yeah, more than that. So you work with a lot of kids too. So how is kids training and then adults training, how are these things different? Because obviously they have to be different.
Yeah. So with the kids or adults, really, it's always everything goes back to the foundation piece of developing the basic movement patterns, right? So with anyone, it's learning how to hinge, squat, lunge properly first,
Yeah.
and then building from there. So from there is where we get into getting more explosive, getting
Mm-hmm.
faster, jumping higher, whatever. The difference I'd say with adults and kids is once that base is established, uh, the kids are usually able to get into stuff more quickly, especially depending on like how active an adult has been. Because as you get older, those hammies may start to cramp up a little sooner than for a kid. A kid could sit out for 2 months and come back and go run and play right away, whereas an adult, there might this doing the athletic training is going to be more critical before going and playing in a kickball game or a
Yeah.
friendly soccer game where you're running around, because you're going to be more likely to get hurt versus where a little kid will be fine and just
Mm-hmm.
run around free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed it last summer or last spring or whatever. Had to be spring because you don't throw frisbee here in Arizona in summertime. But I think it was spring, and there's a lot of lateral movement there. You go and pick up the thing and you throw it. And I noticed the next day, like the outside of my knee were really sore because
Yeah,
there's like a lateral movement like that,
change of
switch
direction.
of direction. And I was like, man, I'm sore. And I definitely would not have felt this like at 20 years old. It would have been just
Yeah,
like one other thing that I did. But now, you start to feel this stuff a little bit more if you don't train it.
yeah.
Yeah. So can you give us some examples of how could somebody get started? Let's say there's a person who, let's use a couple of different scenarios here. Let's say first there's a person who is already, regular gym goer, has the basics down, can do a good squat, lunge, overhead press, like the standard movements, but is not doing any athletic training yet. So how should this person get started with athletic training?
Yeah, so if someone's already training, they've got good movement patterns and all that, simply starting building strength to stabilize. So, say you do lunges, right? A simple way we can start to build some athletic stability to those lunges is only load one side. So, say you normally would do lunges and you hold 30 pounders in each hand,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just going up and down in place. Okay, now say your right foot is forward. No, have your left hand free, only hold the weight in the right hand, step back into a lunge, left leg goes back. And now that weight is going to try to pull your trunk to the right side and collapse your body. So, how well can you stabilize through the trunk? Can you keep your front foot planted on the floor without rolling to the outer edge of your right foot? And then from there, instead of just stepping forward and feet together, now step from the lunge position up to a single leg balancing position where now you're on your right leg, left knee is to 90, toes are
Mm-hmm.
pointed straight ahead, 90 degrees at the ankle, 90 at the knee, 90 at the hip, right? And up there in that single leg balancing position, now again, that weight's going to be trying to pull us to the right side. So simple ways to build that strength is just like doing that offset loading where we're just loading one side of our body instead of the other, right? And
Mm-hmm.
definitely a lot of unilateral strength where
Yeah.
people don't understand that. It's just instead of getting on a bench press and pressing a bar, use a dumbbell, find positions where you're just pressing one side of the body at the time. Right now, you're having to resist rotation towards the loaded side, all that.
Mm-hmm.
That'll also help with just making sure the body isn't balanced, right? You don't have any muscular imbalance. From there, then once you've got your stability built, then it's getting in, like I said, to that fast twitch work. So something as simple as, if you do hamstring curls, and I do this for myself and with athletes that I work with, just with a band, a resistance band that you tie up to a pole or an anchor point, and then you're on your belly. The band is around your ankles, and then on the concentric motion where you're curling the band in, up towards your glutes, you're going to do that curl quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
now you're prepping the hamstrings for being able to run fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which they play a key role when we're sprinting. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going to curl up quickly and then slow on the return and then quick fire up. So ways like this is start incorporating some of that fast twitch work I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then from there, you incorporate some light plyometrics. Start with just like light bounds on 2 feet, just light jumps if you haven't been incorporating any more impact work like that, right? If it's
Mhm.
just been strength work, but light bounds, and then keeping reps low is going to help build our athletic performance and the explosiveness. So one thing I see oftentimes is people get caught up. Even athletic trainers will have athletes perform too many reps, and
Yeah.
what this ends up doing is you're just training cardio at that point instead of performance.
Mm.
If I have an athlete go do squat jumps or box jumps for a minute, what do you think happens after 15 seconds? The height of those jumps start to become lower and lower and lower. So we're not training their ability to jump high. We're just training their ability to jump for a long period of time, which is great if you're just trying to build your cardio. But if you're trying to get athletic and improve your performance, fewer reps of max output and effort are going to be where the money is at when it comes
Mm.
to training for this, right?
Mhm.
And the last thing I'll just touch on real quick is when you get into running and more of that speed work. If you're trying to start sprinting, especially if you're over the age of 30 and you haven't been sprinting, if you've just been doing strength, don't go to 100% effort sprints because you'll get hurt. You'll pull a hammy, something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's fine to gradually ramp up, right? So maybe for the first week or two, you're running at like 70% effort sprints, right? And
Mm.
then week over week, you start to add to that. Okay, now I'm going 75. Now I'm going 85.
Mhm.
So gradually ramp up. Don't feel that the first day has to be all effort, all out effort sprints, all out effort jumps. Gradually
Yeah.
introduce it and then build from there.
So many good points. I'm like, yes, this is so true because like literally, if the last time you sprinted was in high school and high school was 25 years ago, then like you're just not. I mean, you may think that you're the same person. You may have the same level of willpower and internal strength, but it's not. The physical strength is different. Your body is different. It's not used to this movement. So yeah, don't go like all you know all
Yeah.
out with this stuff. Gotta be careful there. Real quick, could you clarify people the term you use, plyometrics, because I don't think everybody knows it.
Oh yeah. Plyometrics refers to like more explosive movements. So like if we're jumping, squat jumps, but also there's upper body plyometrics as well, right?
Mhm.
So like explosive push-ups, if you see people doing the push-ups
Mhm.
where they kind of fly off the ground or jump off the ground, or something as simple as like throwing a med ball explosively, right? And
Mhm.
that stuff is important as well. I should have mentioned this earlier when you asked about why the athletic training is important for people in their 30s to 50s.
Mhm.
Um, the power that you build through plyometrics, whether it be like a med ball explosive chest throw or squat jumps, that's going to help build power when you're doing a squat or a chest press. The at the bottom of that press, that power and explosion needed to drive the weight up or out of the bottom of a squat, this fast twitch work and this explosive work through plyometrics is going to help
Mhm.
with your lifts as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we talked about a person who has pretty good basic level of strength. So what about somebody who's like totally new? Let's say literally the last time they did something was 10 years ago, and they're very deconditioned. Muscle strength is poor, mobility is poor, flexibility is poor. Like the foundation just is not there. So how would you start a person like that?
Yeah, I'd say start with just the basics again. Always build the basics. So
Yeah.
learn squat, lunge, hinge correctly first. Then from there, transition it to unilateral strength work, like I spoke about. Okay, so you can RDL properly. Okay, now do a split stance RDL. And then over time, as the weeks go on, as the months go on, you progress those movements into some of the variations I spoke about, like that offset lunge,
Mhm.
right? And then eventually you get to a point where you're the previous example that you gave me, the previous client you gave me, and now you from there you get into the athletic stuff. But right off the bat, if you haven't done anything, don't go try to
Yeah.
do don't go trying to do explosive fast twitch work. You can incorporate rotational movements. That's good. Move in the frontal plane where you're moving lateral lunges or shuffling laterally lightly. That's fine. But don't go trying to do anything explosive if you've been
Mm.
sitting for years.
Yeah. Please don't go to CrossFit. Like, seriously,
Yeah.
people, like, if you haven't done anything for a while, you're gonna break yourself. And I think CrossFit is kind of like winding down in it anyway. But like years ago, it was a huge deal. And it's so interesting. Like, I think CrossFit is like, it's a sport. It's like there's real athletes who should be doing this type of stuff,
Yeah.
but it's not your everyday person who doesn't have that kind of experience. So now imagine if you haven't done anything for 10 years and you go and start using these heavy weights at like crazy speed, you have no control over how your joints really move. You don't have like the stability, basic level of strength. Anything that is like so intense
Mhm.
has to wait. And I think also I would put boot camps here too. I think a lot of people think that starting at a boot camp class, and we both have been boot camp trainers. This is how we met, but
Yeah.
just the idea of like the very very beginner to start something where there's no individual attention to you. I don't think it's the best place to start. And also, the boot camps oftentimes like encourage moving very fast without real focus on the form. Probably not everywhere. It's not all the places, but I just want people to understand how important it is to start slow and start careful and start by building the foundation before jumping into anything extreme and intense.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, like to your point on the boot camps, it's like so oftentimes I see people just being pushed to do more and more and more.
Yeah.
And I'd say like 75, 80% of the people in the classes that I see are not doing things with correct form.
Mhm.
And it's not like the trainers are going around telling them to
Yeah.
how to fix their form or anything because they're so focused on beating their bodies up, right? And that's a whole other story. But that's the kind of the mentality in the fitness industry. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna hurt yourself, and you're doing more harm for good in a lot of those classes where you're just doing a bunch of reps of something with poor quality form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I think also just the nature of a boot camp class, like because everything moves so fast, there's this blasting music. The trainer, even if she or he wants to, just doesn't have the opportunity to focus on everybody individually.
Yeah,
It's just not doable in a class like
yeah,
that. So even though people might think it's a cheaper option than hiring a trainer, you get like kind of more get like I don't know how many workouts for the same money that you would get one session with a personal trainer.
yeah,
It
yeah.
is still worth it to work with a person in person or through Zoom instead of like jumping into those intense classes.
Yeah, and especially if you're like starting off that way, because I think if
Yeah.
you know how to move properly and you can be told, hey, this is what we're going to do in class, and hey, this is how I'm supposed to move, then I think it's okay. But
Yeah,
like I
I
said,
agree.
most people they're trying to jump into it and trying to get started with that. It's like I do think that before going there, you do probably need to do a couple sessions with
Yeah.
someone who can help correct, make sure you're doing everything properly. So when you go into those um, classes, you're performing things the
Hmm.
right way on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. So what would you say to somebody who is overweight and wants to incorporate more athletic work into her training?
Yeah, so I think well, first of all, I send them to you because I know you're the queen of helping with reducing weight. Um, but again, the same things apply. Build the basics, build the foundation, and as you drop weight, especially if you're overweight, you don't want to go doing a lot of jumping stuff because that's going to be a lot of wear on your joints.
Yes.
So your knees having to absorb that weight that you're carrying, that's going to be a lot of stress on your knees. That's going to just introduce knee injuries,
Hmm.
which at some point will then turn into hip injuries because that is the next joint up the chain to
Hmm.
compromise, right? So um, I would send them to you to help drop the weight first, and then you build the foundations like I know you do with your strength moves, and then from there it's the same approach. From there, just incorporate your rotational movements, get into some fast twitch work and whatnot.
Hmm. Yeah. So I'm also curious, how do you kind of look at somebody's like progress? Let's say that you have a client and she comes to you and she wants to work with you. So how do you start? And also, let's say a month or 2 months later, what do you look at to get an idea? Are we moving in the right direction? Is she making progress? What are the important things for you to look at?
Yeah, so initially it's always see how they're doing with the foundational movement patterns, how correct they're moving, and then some of these progressions I've mentioned already today. It's really in a month or two, like how far along with those progressions are we? Are they like in it? A lot of it applies to how well they're stabilizing from the strength standpoint, but it's like how complex has the movement gotten? are they doing a stationary lunge where we're offsetting that load, or are they doing the step back lunge with the offset load into the balance, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we had just started with holding two weights, stepping back into a lunge balance, and now they're here, right? So simple ways like that of like how complex certain movements have gotten. Maybe we're doing rotational movements. How complex has the rotational pattern or coordination of the movement that I've given them? And that's another piece. It's not just when I speak about movement patterns, it's like some of it is coordination as well, which is a huge piece of being an athlete, right? So it's like I'll give them a somewhat challenging move to coordinate and seeing how well they do that. When it comes from the speed and jumping stuff, when we're talking about it from that standpoint, it comes down to the measurables, right? So for the athletes I have doing speed work, trying to get faster, trying to jump higher, it's literally just like, okay, we have this distance that we're running every week, right? So if it's
Mm-hmm.
on a basketball court, it's like you're measuring how fast can you get from the baseline, which is underneath the hoop, the out of
Mm-hmm.
bounds line underneath the hoop, to the half court line and sprint times. And I have all that stuff tracked for every athlete, right? So how a baseball player, how fast can they get from first base to third base? How fast can they get from home plate to first base, right? So literally the times is one thing. Obviously, with jump height, if I had a client starting, it's like, hey, I couldn't touch the backboard, and now 3 weeks later, I could touch the rim or I could dunk.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think sometimes we get too caught up in the measurables, and a big piece of it is like just the athletes telling you like how they're actually feeling, right?
Yeah.
And them just noticing the stuff like, oh, I'm noticing I'm able to like chase. I had a kid tell me I noticed I was able to chase down this kid on a fast break in basketball and like catch up to him and block his shot, which I wouldn't have been able to do that before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had a kid yesterday I was training. He plays football, but he goes and plays for fun basketball with his friends. And he told me yesterday, he's like, oh, all his friends have been telling him when they're playing basketball that he's gotten noticeably faster. So
Mm-hmm.
just these things, and them telling me that, hey, I'm running faster. I have a kid who runs track, and he's like, I've set PRs now in all my races since working with you. So like those
Mm-hmm.
things, um,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to all the measurables.
That's cool. I wish that when I was in high school and was running track and doing that, I would have had like a trainer like you. Would have been very, very helpful, very beneficial.
Yeah.
Um, so do you have any cool stories from adults who have started with you, and just some examples of like how they've gotten better, like that some things that they can do that they were not able to do, or some other cool transformations that come to your mind?
Yeah, for the adults, I have a lot of adults who like to travel a lot, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's been one of the cool things is my whole thing with fitness is that it should allow us to live better lives outside of the gym. I think
Yes,
fitness
I
gets
agree.
caught up on like being good inside of the gym, but then your joints hurt after your workout that you killed your body, and now you can't go engage in things outside the gym. So I think
Mm-hmm.
for me, I have clients who they're like able to go and engage on these hikes or activities when they travel that before they maybe weren't able to or didn't have the confidence to,
Mm-hmm.
and now having them equipped with that confidence to do that, or they have a niece or nephew or kids, and it's like they can go run around with that kid on the beach, kicking a soccer ball around or throwing a
Mm-hmm.
football around, right? That's what I want, because it's like now you're living more experiences in your life with your loved ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's the big thing with the kids. Like I said, many of those examples I just shared, but one of the most meaningful ones for me with one of the girls that I work with. So they came to me when she was about in, I think, sixth or seventh grade, and she's now a freshman in high school. But I got an email and a text from her dad late one night, reaching out about training for his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She was the slowest on the soccer team, and she had told him she was ready to give up on soccer and like didn't want to play sports anymore. And he was like, that was very hard to hear, right? Like the sport she loved, and because she's slow, she wanted to give up. And of course, the coaches just keep yelling like, "Run faster, run faster!" And it's like
Well, that's helpful.
she's trying, but she doesn't like So they came to me, and within a month, she became the fastest kid on the team. She now
Wow.
just made varsity soccer as a freshman in high school, and it's like she refound her love for the game, and it was
Oh,
like
good.
that was cool because I know what it meant for her parents, to like see their daughter like find that passion again, and like um, not have that kind of like disappointment and wanting to give up. And also for her, like continues to like have that soccer time and that bond with all the teammates. So it's not just like, hey, she's faster, she's playing soccer. It's like, no, you're continuing to build relationships with these girls that you're playing with on your team, and also just all the lessons that being an athlete and on a team give you for life. So that's the most like meaningful like story I'd say that I have.
Oh, I'm so happy for this girl, like for real,
Yeah,
because I know how hard it is, like to be the slower one, or that everybody else is better, and then you become that person. This is just so cool, and if she's really passionate about the game, then there's nothing better, really. So that's
yeah,
super
yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
That's
she works
really.
hard. She works multiple times a week with me. So the
Mm-hmm.
work pays off. It's not, we don't only do speed work. So we have one day a week where we're doing speed work. We have other days where we're doing like the strength work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, yeah, you put the work in and you'll get the
Yeah.
result.
Yeah. And you really have to know like who trains your kid. Like, and we've talked about it, you and I, so much about this topic, that people just think that a trainer is a trainer. Like any trainer is fine. But you really have to know, like, what are you looking for? Like, what is the specific thing? Because like you have a very specific skill. Like whenever I have anybody ask me, like, if they want to help their kid to improve in their whatever sport, like there's absolutely nobody else I would send them to, only you, because you know the stuff. So there would be no point in like me trying to teach them that, because this is not my area of like that I'm really good at. So it's just, I think, for parents to know that, really be really careful with like who is training your kid, and make sure that it's the person who knows their stuff, because this is very specific. It is different from doing just like biceps curls or like box jumps for reps. It's not like that. It's very specific.
Yeah, for sure. I preach that all the time, that like not all training is the same, especially when it comes
No.
to like training athletically, because I see parents investing this money and time taking their kids to trainers for athletic training, and like nothing about the training is athletic. Just
Mm-hmm.
because you stand on a Bosu ball and do bicep curls, that doesn't make it athletic. It's like this
Mm-hmm.
is stuff I see being done as like so-called athletic training, or okay, you're going to stand on one foot and do overhead tricep extensions. Like that's not athletic. That's not
No.
helping. But there's a lot of that nonsense out there, and it's like now you've invested all that time and that money
Yeah.
for this, and it's like, and you got what out of it? Not what you were hoping to accomplish. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's I agree with you. There's definitely you definitely want to find the right person for what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
That's with
Yeah.
anything in life, of course, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's very true. And just exactly to show that fitness is no different. It is pretty specific. Okay, so now talking about kind of that, like there's a lot of craziness in the fitness world. So I think it's a good opportunity to talk about that too. So what I've seen is that the very common idea that like sells the most workout programs and diet programs is that this idea that fitness is only about weight loss and fat loss. And we see it so much in social media, we see it so much in like local boot camp places, whatever it is. So tell us, why do you think that this is a problem? Because I know you think so.
Be part of it for certain people, but I think people take the trainers push that approach out even to people who don't need weight loss, which is crazy, right? And it's like maybe this person needs to gain weight and get stronger. And I mean, you
Mhm.
know better than anyone about all that, with the clientele you work with. But I think, like I said earlier, what we're doing in the gym, it's more than just like being good in the gym. It needs to help us outside of the gym. So that's what I think fitness should be about. It should be about moving better, moving more pain free, living more pain free, so that you can engage in life and just activities outside of the gym. But that message doesn't get put out there. Maybe it's
Mhm.
not sexy enough. It doesn't like
Yeah.
attract as much attention. But yeah, I think, and oftentimes maybe it's like, you have someone come in and it's like maybe they have a knee injury and you're not even focused on improving that. You're just like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do to work around that,
Mhm.
to lose weight, instead
Mhm.
of like, well, what can I do to help you, fix and address the need to strengthen that up so that you can live more pain-free and move around better.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, it's true. But it's just in general, like, of course, I agree that there are a lot of people with a weight problem. Of course, there are. I
Yeah,
mean, you can't argue. Just look around anywhere you
especially in
are.
the U.S.
Yes.
Yeah,
So you go to a store, you walk around the street, maybe not so much at the gym, but then in general, you see a lot of people with, yeah, they do have a weight problem. But what I don't agree with is that like putting all the focus on that. Like, this is why we work out.
yeah,
This is why we eat healthy. This is why we do all these things just so that we can lose weight. It's just one piece of the whole equation. It's not as simplified. And I also just recently, well, I knew this before, but I saw this study too that showed that actually what is a better predictor of the quality of life is your strength and movement ability. This is bigger and more important than your weight, right? So in other words, you could be like maybe lightly overweight, but if you are strong and if you can be still fit, right?
yeah,
You can be strong, you can move really well. That person is better off than a person who's like really, let's say, low weight, but has no strength, has no skill, has like really bad movement patterns. So that's why like pushing the only the weight is kind of, for me, is like I just can't agree with it, even though I do help people lose weight, but I don't like that, only like that perspective.
yeah. And I think it also adds like to it messes with people's mental, right? And it
Mm,
can get people like mentally obsessed with like a pound or
yeah,
two, and that's
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
lead to mental problems, right? It's like
Hmm.
I have one lady, and when she started with me, she was very caught up on like the number on the scale. And again,
Yeah.
she was one of my clients. She enjoys traveling, and she would go on vacation and come back. Oh, I gained 3 pounds while I was on vacation, and I'm like, that's fine. Like that, you had a good time on your vacation, right? You got to eat some good food. You experienced a new country.
Hmm.
You saw a different culture,
Hmm.
and you gained 3 pounds. That's fine.
Hmm.
You weren't as I mean, you were walking around, but that's fine. You had a break from your regular workouts or your normal routine.
Yeah.
But 3 pounds, it's nothing, right? And
It's
so it's
nothing.
been
Yeah.
cool shifting her mindset to where she's like, yeah, now I don't feel so bad about that. But yeah, it kind of like guilt trips people into this like
Hmm.
feeling bad about themselves and negative, and it's like that
Hmm.
your fitness shouldn't do that. It should be giving you mental clarity
Hmm.
and feeling better about yourself.
Yeah. And if you are consistent with your training, like most of the time when you're at home, like 1 week or even 2 weeks off is not going to kill anything.
Yeah,
You're going to be fine. You're still going to have the same level of fitness. And actually, sometimes you come back, you're more rested and you can perform better at the gym. So like this whole idea of like, one of them is like no pain, no gain, or, whatever the BS is out there. It's just,
yeah,
it's really extreme. It's like all or nothing. You have to be on track all the time and obsess. And if you don't obsess, it's like something is wrong with you. But like, how about we just try to live our lives and then have like the fitness and the food piece be something that makes our lives better, not so that like our lives like revolve around this stuff,
yeah.
you know? Speaking of no pain, no gain, I know that you have a problem with that too, just like me. So what is the no pain and no gain, or maybe some other things that come to your mind that you're like, nah, I don't agree with this.
Well, it's not even that. Obviously, I don't agree with it. You don't either. But it's just
No,
like it's factual that it's not true. So
it's
it's not even that like, hey, the hoodie I'm wearing is gray. That's a fact, right?
yeah,
Right? It's not. You could say you don't like gray. Okay, that's fine. That's your opinion. I can agree with that or disagree. But it's like we can't argue the fact that this piece of my hoodie is gray,
yeah,
right? And so it's like it's simply not true that you can't get gains in the weight room or with your fitness without pain,
mm-hmm.
right? It's not true. The other one, like you sent me one a few weeks ago, and it was like, no, if you're not sweating, you're not working hard enough, or something along those lines. If you're not sweating enough, you're not working hard enough. And again, that's simply not true either. Like I
Yeah,
shared on my Instagram after like article with research done of like it's simply not true. Like how much you
mm-hmm.
sweat is no indicator of how like how, the workout intensity, and everyone has different like sweat levels of how they
Yes,
sweat. I remember when I was in college, one of my teammates, we're 2 hours into a workout, just the two of us on the court, basketball court, right? And when I do strength training, I don't really sweat at all. On the basketball court, I'll sweat, but I wasn't that sweaty. And he's like bent over, drenched in
Mm-hmm.
sweat, my teammate. And he looks at me, he's like, "So do you just not sweat?" And I'm like, "I sweat. I just don't sweat as much as you, I guess." But he's like, we got to talking about it, and that was like the first time this had ever been brought to my awareness in college, right? And we were talking about it. He's like, yeah, he's like him walking up the stairs to class. He's like, he'll break out in sweat, or just like
Right.
walking to his bathroom in the morning to brush his teeth. He's like, the smallest activity makes him sweat a bunch, right? But it's like, it's no indicator when you put messages out like that. Trainers, I see putting it out, no pain, no gain, and like
Yeah.
that's, it's like, it's just irresponsible because
Yeah.
you're you're spreading false information to
Mm-hmm.
people who rely on us as fitness professionals to educate them.
Yeah, yeah. And again, this idea that everything has to be painful. Like if
Yeah,
there's no like immense struggle, then there's not going to be anything good. You can't get your result. But it's not. It's just not true. And honestly, yes, of course, like there is a certain type of pain when you work out, and that's your muscle burn. Sometimes you do feel it, so we shouldn't be like afraid of it, because I've actually heard that too. People like, what was that? What is that? Like they get like super like alarmed because they
yeah,
have never trained before, and this feeling of like muscle burn is unfamiliar, so they
yeah,
freak out. So this is normal to feel this way, but to say like it has to hurt, or you have to like pour buckets of sweat, or otherwise it didn't count, it's just wrong. Everybody's different. And by the way, if you are in pain after every workout, something's wrong. You're overtraining then.
yeah. Or the
Right.
player doesn't know what they're doing.
Yes.
Like you said, you shouldn't be leaving workouts in pain. Like
No.
you can leave having had a great session working
Yeah.
out. I had one. I was training a client at a gym one time, and there was another guy who used to always see me training my client, and he was working out with another trainer. And he asked my client, he's like, "Oh, are you in a lot of pain after your workouts?" And he's like, "My shoulders, my joints are in so much pain." He's like, "No, I've gotten stronger, but I actually feel great after our workouts."
Yeah.
I think so much of the industry is caught up on just like beating bodies down.
Hmm.
And this is connecting this to athletic training. This is one of the pieces that is really important because, again, like I said earlier, my job is not to make the athletes like be elite. Like, yes, you have to be great in the gym, but it's not me looking, if I have a basketball player who had practice yesterday, today's an off day, but they have a game tomorrow. Most trainers, they're like, "Oh, you're off today, cool, and we're gonna go super hard," and then they leave and they're like, "Oh, you sore? You're sore, right? You're burning? Oh yeah, he's burning." And I hear trainers saying this to
Oh my
parents
God.
of kids they train, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's sore, huh?" Right? Yeah, but now because I beat their body up so great, yeah, it was a great workout, super challenging and tough. Because of the work we did, their quads are sore, whatever, their shoulders are dead. Now in his game tomorrow, he can't run fast, he can't jump, his shoulders are dead, so he can't shoot. So really, how did I help him? I didn't. I,
Hmm.
I, I did a great job of like making myself feel good because I killed his body in the gym and all that, right? But the end goal is them performing better on the
Hmm.
court, right? So that's one of the key things, especially when you're working with athletes, that you have to remember is like it's not just having really good workouts inside the gym, especially when in season, right? And it's like it
Yeah.
tailors for when we're in season versus off season. Off season, we can hit stuff a little harder. We're going to train more days a week. In season, our training gets tailored to, even some of our days are just strictly like mobility and recovery days where we
Hmm.
just use a foam roller. We're going through mobility work and making sure that they're good to go the next day for maybe they got, especially in summertime coming up, they'll have these tournaments with, 3-day weekend and multiple games a day. So it's like,
Hmm.
we don't need to beat their bodies up before that. It's
No.
we want to prep their bodies for that.
Right. I mean, in season, the goal is to do your sport well, right? To be good
Yeah,
at that. So
yeah,
this is not the time to add volume, add whatever intensity. Um, this is kind of like you see what you have accomplished when you prepared, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I like this idea of like beating somebody up before an important game. It's like, I'm not an athletic performance trainer, but that's the most logical thing to me. Why would I
Yeah.
ever do that to a client?
It's funny though. You would think it's common sense, but I see it so often where I'll hear people talking, like I said, to a parent, like, "Oh, he was sore after the workout, huh? He's sore after," and that's what they judge the workout by. And that's another thing is like for people listening, just like the soreness and pain you're in is not indicative of like the quality of workouts
Hmm.
you got, and or for like what you need right now,
Yeah.
right? But so many trainers, that's all they use to. Oh, they're sore. They're burning. It was burning, huh? They're
Mm-hmm.
sore, and they're like they think that somehow made them more athletic. Like it didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, this is not to say that you should avoid all muscle soreness. This is not what
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
trying to
that's not
say
what
at
we're
all.
saying. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
the timing of it, and again, like using it to judge a workout, especially in season. It's not the way to
Mm.
do it.
I've had a client long time ago. She messaged me. She said, "Hey, I think we have to change my workout programming now because I'm not getting sore from this anymore." I'm like, "Well, no, that doesn't mean that because yes, like every time when you have like a, let's say you change your workout routine, I typically with my clients it's every like 4 or 6 weeks. It depends on a person, but roughly. So that first week on a new program, you're gonna get a little more sore because there's new movements, new ways of doing things, maybe higher reps, maybe lower reps. Something changes, your body responds by, you're getting sore, and that's normal. But this is not like we're gonna chase that now, and like all 6 weeks you have to be sore. Like by
Yeah,
the second or third week, your body is adapting, and it's a good thing. You're not meant to be sore all
yeah,
the
and then you
time.
just load the weight more from
Yep.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about also like you are a personal trainer, you go out, you do things. What are some of the fun things that sometimes people ask you when you're not training, but you show up as a regular person who's not working at the moment? You go to a party, you eat pizza. What are some of the things that people ask you? Because I know there's some stuff that comes up for personal trainers, like anybody who works with people's bodies, like physical therapists, get immediately asked about their shoulder injury, or like a personal trainer or a nutrition coach. We get this interesting stuff. So, do you have any experience with that?
yeah, definitely. Like if I'm out at an event or something and I eat like a slice of pizza or I eat some French fries or cake, people will be like, "Oh, he can't eat that," or "You eat that?" They kind of like, and I was like, "Yeah, like I live life. I don't eat it every day, but again, we need to enjoy life, live life, right, and engage in experiences." So there's always a question about like, what can you eat? And I'm like, regular food, the way you eat, Um, so there's that. The other thing is like I do get a lot of because I do corrective exercise classes as well and all that, and I help a lot of people with recovering from injuries and healing injuries up and all that. So people know that. So I do get a lot of questions like to your point about like, hey, my shoulder is hurting. I'm having this shoulder pain,
Mm,
or they ask me, hey, when I'm bench pressing or whatever, this is happening. I'm having this pain here, and so
mm,
I might maybe give them an alternative. Hey, bench with dumbbells instead in a neutral grip, and
mm,
oh, that helped. So
mhm.
there's that. Like people asking me about whatever pains they have, knee issues, all that. And then the other thing is people asking me how to be able to jump high. They're like,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I want to be able to dunk. Like, what do I have to do to be able to dunk? Like, this is what I'm just squatting a lot now, and my jump's not getting higher. And it's like I have to explain, like, yeah, you're not incorporating any of the fast twitch explosive work. Um, but yeah, those are the three main things: how to jump
Mm.
higher. Here are my injuries. Can you tell me why or what to do? And then the surprise around being able to eat a cookie or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you mind when people ask these questions, or you're like, yeah, I'm cool with that?
I don't mind. I'm happy to help if I can. So
Hmm.
I don't want to spend the whole evening talking about it, but like I'm passionate about what I do. Like I feel
Mm.
blessed to be able to do this. I don't look at it as a job. It's something that
Mm.
I love doing. So I'm happy to help if it's going to help someone
Mm.
move better, and all that. The food one I'd say is the only one that's a little like funny to me, just
Yeah.
because like no, yeah.
It is funny. It's funny, like when people start feeling bad about their food choices, they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you're a nutrition coach. I shouldn't show you that I'm eating this." I'm like, chill, like I'm not policing anybody. Do what you
Yeah,
want.
yeah,
It's again this very black or white thinking. Like if you are a trainer or nutrition coach, it means that you have to be eating like I don't know lettuce leaves all the time, right, or something like that. It's not true. It's just
yeah,
not true.
yeah.
And I think maybe some people do that, and more power to them. But I'm not that person. I'm not a
And I
person that.
love food and all the different types
Yeah.
of cultures of food, right? So it's like I want to have Mediterranean euros, and I
Mm-hmm.
go to New York. Of course, I'm going to eat some New York pizza.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, you gotta live and enjoy life too.
Yeah, exactly. Do you ever have people asking you about something like, I saw this on Instagram? They show you an exercise or something. What do you think? Do you ever have
Um,
that?
Maybe a few times, I think. Interestingly, I think with some of the younger kids I worked with,
Hmm.
there was a lot of that because they're so easily influenced.
Hmm.
And especially they would go into public gyms and they see a lot of the ego lifters where they're
Hmm.
doing bicep curls but throwing their whole back out to like curl the weight up and lat pull downs, but like they're just using momentum and rocking their bodies back.
Hmm.
So I'd say it wasn't so much Instagram as more so just them being easily influenced in public gyms,
Hmm. Hmm.
and having to really give them a proper understanding of what real fitness is. I have
Hmm.
had a few adults as well, especially when it comes to like people who are trying to dunk and for basketball, like adults who are like in their late 20s. Oh, I want to start dunking again, or I want to try to dunk. I've never dunked, but I'm like 28 and I want to dunk. And it's like they see all this stuff on social media, like 5 things to do to dunk, and I'm like, that's not how it works, you know. And there's that for everything. 5 things to do to lose weight. Five
Yeah.
things to get a 6 pack. All that, right? But they'll randomly send me the clips on Instagram. Hey, what do you think of this? Hey, what do you think of this? And
Mm.
it's like, well, it's not. It's not as simple as just these 3 or 5 things. It's
Hmm.
a whole approach, and I can't just give it to you all in this one text message or whatever, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, we want results super quick, right? And
Yeah.
this Instagram and other social media, it really encourages that kind of stuff. This idea that everything is like Amazon Prime. Prime.
Yeah.
There's the saying that your body's not Amazon Prime. It doesn't. You don't get it in one day or whatever. It's so
Yeah.
true. And there's a lot of those young influencers too on Instagram that just put these posts out and then they look cute and they look very fit and they're very young, and I think people also get really caught up in that. They think that if somebody like that gives advice that this must be true, but like you said, there's so much nuance and you cannot simplify or put it in like a short 5 bullet point caption. It's
Yeah.
just not how it works. There's so much more like individuality and overall, I think a lot of young trainers who don't really have experience training people, it's one thing to put cute stuff on Instagram, and the other one is have the real life experience of training.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, and that's the problem with social media is, right? Like people, to your point, they'll see an aesthetically nice looking video. So
Mm-hmm.
someone dressed in a nice outfit in a nice
Mm-hmm.
location and the camera angles are right. So aesthetically, the video is very pleasing and looks good. But if you look through that to what is actually being shared inside the video,
Mm-hmm.
that's what you need to look through is like, okay, it doesn't matter that these 60 people are commenting on, oh, you look so cute in that outfit, or oh, killing it, or whatever, and they got these big followings. Look at what the actual content they're sharing is in the knowledge. I did see something just this past November 2024, and it was a article. They said 62% of fitness influencers um, admitted that they do not fact check or verify that the information they're sharing is correct. And there was a couple of years ago, um, Ben Bruno, he trains Klay Thompson, who plays in the NBA. He played for the Golden State Warriors. He now plays for the Dallas Mavericks. He trains a couple other NBA players, um, as well as many celebrities. Like he works with Chelsea Handler. And he does good work. He does
Mm-hmm.
real strength work. He knows what he's talking about. He has a big following.
Mm-hmm.
But he shared an article by some major news source, and they found that of the top 100 fitness influencers, like the majority of them were sharing incorrect information. So it's like I just try to urge people to remember, like again, don't just believe something because hey, this person has 180,000 followers.
Yeah.
They have 300 comments of people putting a little fire emoji and
Mm-hmm. Right.
like the muscle emoji, like killing it, and just comments like that. Like that's why the thing I think that we can do best is like educate people on like what real fitness should look like. So then you can see through those things and be like, hey, this person knows what they're talking about, or this person, no, this is not proper information, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's my goal is for people to be better equipped so they can kind of see through the
Yeah.
nonsense that is out there and know what's real.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing like honest work here. We really want people to get better and then
Yeah,
get their goals and move better and get stronger and have better health ultimately, like you said, so that they can enjoy their lives. But like truly, like when you look at those people with massive followings, a lot of times these people are in their early 20s. I mean, it's not hard to look cute and fit when you're in your early 20s.
yeah,
It's not hard. And
yeah,
then, you know that you mentioned the right light and the right camera angle. Like you know this part obviously well too because of your other job.
yeah.
So you kind of see through. I mean, you can mention it. But you see through this,
You
right?
could
You
tell
know.
them.
Yeah. Oh, you tell them.
No, you tell them.
Okay, Derek's a model, and so he has a different. You have like two Instagram accounts. Like one is for your modeling work too, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So that's why I said that Derek knows this stuff, and that's why you probably see through this BS better than an everyday person who thinks that this is just natural, woke up
yeah,
like this. No, she didn't wake up like this.
yeah,
Just rolled out of bed.
yeah. No, it's so true, and yeah, it's like I tell people, I'm like, these people aren't necessarily good trainers; they're just good at social media. Like
Hmm.
I'm terrible at social media. Like with my training videos, I just if I'm filming my own workout, I'll just prop the phone up against my water bottle or something. And like, hey,
Exactly.
maybe I should capture this to share, and I
Hmm.
don't allocate any time for like lighting or like
Hmm.
angles and all that. I just like what's the best angle to like for people to be able to see the movement that I'm demonstrating, and that's
Hmm.
it. And
Hmm.
I know to shoot with like the light coming from behind the camera instead of shooting into the light, I guess. But
Hmm. Hmm.
like there's people that bring like the little ring lights and all these other things and all that, and it's like and understanding social media is like a whole thing as well as like how to grow an Instagram page or a
Hmm.
YouTube page. Like there's a lot of good trainers out there who have smaller followings that
Yeah.
don't know how to do that. So it's like, and I'm sure it's like that in other industries too. There's probably plenty of good restaurants that aren't good at the social media stuff, but they make
Hmm.
excellent food. But people are going to go to the one with the big page and
Hmm.
all that because it's like they know how to shoot the like appealing aesthetically videos, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, in the ideal world, you are a good trainer and you're really good at social media. So this is like perfect. But
I'm good at social
sometimes,
media. I don't think I'm good at social media.
no, I'm saying like this would be
Oh,
the
that's
ideal
yeah, yeah,
scenario.
yeah.
This would be the
Yeah.
ideal scenario. Yeah. You're
Yeah, and it's
good.
not to say that. Having said that, there are like plenty of
Yeah, like
trainers
Ben
with
Bruno.
big followings. Like yeah, like I said, like Ben Bruno, he knows what he's
Hmm.
talking about. He shares a lot of good stuff, and
Hmm.
there's other trainers like that out there as well with like large followings, and
Hmm.
people know, hey, this person knows what they're talking about. And
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we're coming close to the end of our chat, but I want to finish with some rapid fire questions, just so that the listeners can get to know you more. Some of them are going to be about fitness, and some just like life outside fitness too. You ready?
yeah.
Okay, so let's start with this. What is your favorite exercise that you absolutely love doing?
My favorite exercise would probably be any rotational work, right? So I have like
Mm,
my staple exercises like dead bug, single arm press, TRX, inverted row, push up variations. But rotational patterns allow me to be very creative, and that's where I get to be, like I was saying earlier, coming up with ways with the med ball or the cable machine to innovate different movement patterns, and a lot of those being
mm.
rotational work.
I've noticed that. I know you like that stuff, and every time it's so rare that we get to work out. Maybe once a year it happens, but every time we
Yeah,
do, you make me do some rotational work. So I appreciate that.
yeah. If people see it on the Instagram, people will see a lot of the rotational stuff if
Mm,
they check. So, yeah.
yeah. Okay, so the opposite of that. What is the exercise that you don't like doing at all, but you do it anyway because you know it's good for you?
There's nothing that I don't like doing. Aside from like exercises I don't agree with, like burpees or like the CrossFit kipping pull-ups that are like
Oh
I
my
can't,
God.
you know. But as far as like movements that should be done, there's none that I don't like doing. I'd say running is probably the thing I least like doing.
Mm,
Um, but I just do it in a fun way. I play basketball and I run that way, or I do my speed and agility work, and that way I'm getting like performance benefits out of it. I'm getting faster. I'm improving my change of direction. But just to go on a run,
mm,
both my brothers were cross country athletes, and they used to make me run with them
mm.
growing up on all the hills in my neighborhood. I hated it.
So you don't do that at all.
Yeah, I don't do any distance running. All my distance running comes on the basketball court. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the next one. What is a fitness myth that you wish died for good?
Oh, that is a good question. I mean, we can go back to some of those points we were talking about earlier, the no pain, no gain, the sweat.
Yeah.
Um, I think those, but I think it's really just being able I don't know if it's getting rid of a myth. I guess, yes, I want to get rid of those, but like I said, I want fitness to start to become more focused, like we mentioned, on like moving better and living better outside of the gym and not just like beating your body up in the gym.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like really focus on how it helps your life instead.
Right. I know one thing that you said often is the go muscles versus show muscles, right? That's kind of like one of your mantras, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. We train go muscles, not show muscles. But I
Mm.
tell people, I was like, you're going to get the show muscles as a result. But it's like, yes, go muscles, not show muscles. That is something that I say to my client.
Yeah, that's kind of the paradox. I don't know if it's a paradox of it, but it kind of is like when you focus on the so-called go muscles, which is just but it broader, like your performance,
Yeah,
then you're just gonna look good. You're just gonna look good.
yeah,
It's like and it feels a little bit less like efforting and pushing, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna train so I have good function, and look at that, I'm starting to look better.
yeah. And the movements are a little different. Like I said, training movement patterns instead of just muscle groups. That's the go muscles, not show muscles. But
Mm.
the movements are tend to be more fun, so people
Hmm.
enjoy kind of the coordination of the movements, and it kind of feels like playtime almost, you know. So,
Yeah, that's cool. All right. So, what is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to fitness?
uh, are we talking about like messaging out there, or are we talking about just like things that people do with fitness?
Or how about both?
Okay, pet peeve would when it comes to messaging would just be like incorrect messaging in general. Like I said, a lot of these false message that are clearly false messaging, but just trainers continuing to put it out because it's going to make people feel guilty to
Yeah.
come work out. So that that guilt tripping of people is something I don't like.
Hmm.
Um, as far as like things that occur inside the gym,
Hmm.
people not re-racking weights. If you
Yes.
are strong enough to lift the weights, please remove them because the person after you may not be able to do that. They may be rehabbing a shoulder injury or something or a back injury,
Hmm.
and they need to use that machine for their rehab, but they
Hmm.
cannot go unload it. Like if I'm in there and I'm using equipment and some elderly, 70-year-old lady is going to come onto a machine after me and use
Hmm.
it, I shouldn't expect her to lift, 45-pound plates off or whatever,
Yeah.
so re-rack your weights, and that's that's just being like accommodating of people in general, regardless of think
Hmm.
of other than yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. So, what about in general? Do you have any pet peeves outside of the gym, outside of the workouts?
I mean, probably kind of on that point. Just I feel like there's a lot of lack of consideration for others, just even outside of the gym. My biggest thing, me being a car guy, bad drivers, and I think a lot of it is because of lack of consideration for others, and that, and people being so addicted to their phones that they're
Yeah.
sitting on their phones texting. Oh, the light turned green. Oh, but now it's orange. So I'm going to go through and leave everyone else stuck at the light. Um, just the complete unawareness. But
Hmm.
yeah, just be considerate of others and realize
Hmm.
that there's other people in the world too that are living life and trying to do things and get places.
Yeah. You want to talk about cars?
That's I could go on and on about cars today.
Yes, our favorite cars. Let's not talk about them today. Okay, so next thing, what is your favorite not everyday food?
So for me, I feel like it probably changes every like 3 weeks or so. Like it might be cheeseburgers one day or a couple of weeks. I might be it's just kind of like what I'm in the mood for.
Mm.
Pizza or although pizza I've kind of like gone away from.
Mm.
Um, I mean, you know what it used to be.
Mm.
The
Oh,
breakfast item.
chicken, the chicken waffles, that
No, no,
thing?
no, something
No.
else. A breakfast item. Remember
Wait, wait,
cereal.
wait, wait. Oh, cereal, of course. Yes,
I
yes,
used
cereal.
to love cereal. Like I told Kirsten when we used to work out together when we were in the same area. Like my goal was to have a house and have a room dedicated as like the cereal room. So I wanted to be able to walk into that room and have all these little buckets on the walls of different types of cereal. I used to love cereal. I'll still have cereal throughout the week here and there. I do like the honey bunches of oats, a little healthier. But yeah, like cereal used to be my thing. My one thing that I'd say that's like my favorite, not everyday thing though, it's not necessarily a food, it's more a dessert, is like I have a sweet tooth for like chocolate,
Oh,
specifically chocolate chip cookies. So chocolate chip cookies are like my, that's my thing.
yeah, they are really good.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
especially the
cereal thing.
homemade baked ones, warm. Yeah,
Mm, yeah, I remember the cereal. I think you one time you sent me this thing on Instagram. There was like a house with like shelves like packed with different cereals, and you're like, "This is my dream home," or something like that.
yeah,
Kind of like that. What
yeah.
happened to chicken and waffles, though? Still like them?
I still like chicken and waffles. Yeah, that's that place we used to go though. They closed down, so that was the best spot I knew for chicken and waffles
Mm,
here. So I gotta find a new spot.
right. All right, couple more here. What is your favorite way to spend a Saturday night?
Well, I'm not much of a going out person. I'm kind of a homebody, kind of a quiet person. If I'm hanging with friends and stuff, I prefer something smaller. I do better in like a smaller group setting because when I go in a large setting, I'm like just way too shy. I'm not going to talk to anyone. So I prefer a smaller group setting with people that I can have more quality time with, catching up with, and maybe doing something as simple as like a game night with a basketball game or some game on in the background, or going out to a nice dinner. If I'm
Mm,
on my own, I'll just chill homebody and watch a game or some comedy, or like you mentioned, I'm a car guy, so I'll honestly just like put on some YouTube car reviews or car videos and watch those.
mm, okay.
Very, very simple.
Are you still doing them yourself too? I think you for a while you did.
The car reviews?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
still I'm still filming. I do have a little like car YouTube channel where I review different vehicles. Something I just started for fun during the pandemic, and it kind of like took off. And so
Mm.
uh, I've been filming my like next season of releases.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
That's cool. All right. So the last one, what is your number one bucket list item that you want to do one day?
probably be able to afford a house. It's expensive in the Bay Area.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say that'd be probably the number one thing. Other than that, just like continuing to travel the world. I've been lucky to travel throughout Europe, multiple countries, and um, my family is from the Caribbean, so I've been throughout the Caribbean. But going out to Asia is somewhere I haven't been yet, so that's probably next on the list is to get out to Asia, Japan specifically,
Mm, yeah,
Korea.
that would be cool. I've never been to Asia either. It's
Yeah.
definitely one thing I'd like to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to tell people where they can find you? And also, by the way, do you take on online clients too, or are you just in person right now?
I do. So I have a program I do where it's like custom monthly workout plans, and people can find this on my website, agfperformancetraining.com, or they could reach out to me on Instagram, AGF
Mhm.
Performance Training on Instagram, on YouTube as well. But yeah, I do custom monthly workout plans, so it's tailor fit to the individual. We have an initial consultation, figure out where their movement patterns are at, what their current routine is like, their exercise history, any injuries, anything like that, and then we build from there accordingly. And it's tailor fit to like however many days a week they can allocate to the workout. So if it's like I can only do 3 days a week, then we custom fit it to you 4 days a week, whatever.
Mhm.
And then we do weekly check-ins from there, and then at the end of every month we evaluate where you're at and we progress the program
Mhm.
as necessary. So I do that, and yeah, that's something that people can do if they're interested, or if they're in
Mhm.
the Bay Area, they can work out with me that way as well in person.
Yeah. So I make sure to put your website and I guess your Instagram handle, YouTube channel too, in the show notes so people can check out what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Thank you.
All right. So is there anything that maybe I didn't ask, but you feel like that would be important to add before we wrap up today?
No, I think we covered a lot. We
Mm-hmm.
covered a lot of stuff on all across not only the athletic stuff, but across the whole fitness industry as well. So think we touched on a lot of good points here.
Mm. Okay. Well, in that case, thanks so much for chatting with me today, and hope to see you soon in person too. That'd be
Yes,
cool.
hopefully so. And thank you for having me on. And yeah, we'll have to link up again sometime soon and get a workout together in person.
Yep. Yep. All those rotational moves. Gonna need
Yeah, for
to
sure.
some more of those. All right. Thanks again. Bye bye.
Bye bye.